Well, hello everyone. It is so nice to be back, and today we are here with our fellow teacher, Jose Quiroz.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
So it is a pleasure to be here with you today, and we're here today to talk about the challenges that you face as an English teacher.
So I'm just ready to answer your questions.
Well, teacher, I would like to know how has English teaching changed from you start until now? I'm interested in knowing the transformations you have noticed, both in methodologies and institutional expectations.
I began teaching about 25 years ago, so a lot of changes have taken place. One big change is with the advent of technology and the internet, computers. Back in my days, I didn't have all that at hand. So whenever I wanted to know about the meaning of a word, I would have to go to a dictionary, take the time to read all the information until I found what exactly I wanted to know. Nowadays it's much easier. You can use a computer, just look up a word in the dictionary, and if you know, for example, what part of speech the word is, you can go directly to that word and read the meaning and finally know what you really want to know. For example, having the chance to talk to someone, like today, you can just download an app and start talking to someone. You can have video conferences. But back in my days, when I was a student, it had to be like live. Finally, you have to get someone to talk to you, someone who was really interested in having a conversation with you. And if you wanted to make sure about meanings or variations in language, like idioms and other expressions, then you would have to find a native speaker. So I remember going out, asking a native speaker, a tourist usually, to clarify something for me. I remember doing that. I was a little embarrassed to do that because not everybody's willing to answer those types of questions, but I had to do it. I felt like I had to do it in order to to have clarification on any questions that I had.
Since you've been working for a long time, like you said, what challenges do you consider most persistent in the classroom, especially with students who have a low level of English? Are there any strategies to have work for you to motivate them?
It's pretty challenging, when you have students that have a low level, and you usually have a heterogeneous class. So you have students that have a low level and students that have a high level and intermediate level. So it's a real challenge, especially for those who have a low level, because they usually feel intimidated by those who have a higher level. What I usually try is recommend them some things that they could do in order to improve their level. And I usually tell them to do different activities per day. So, for example, Mondays use Mondays for listening, Tuesdays for reading, Wednesdays for learning grammar or vocabulary, and Thursdays. But I have to tell you that very few of them follow my advice. The rest of them tend to be, again, as I said, intimidated, and they seldom do something to improve their level. Ideally, classes should be homogeneous, like everyone with the same level. What I usually do is I recommend things to them that they could do and motivate them. I usually do that. Tell them it's doable. Everybody can learn a language, especially if you're dedicated and you have persistence.
Well, that's true. I totally agree. It is somewhat complicated to deal with students of different levels in the same classroom, but it is very important to try to motivate students to improve their English.
The question I want to ask is somehow related to what you said earlier. How do you address the diversity of levels within the same group? Do you have any techniques to prevent advanced students getting bored and slower students from getting frustrated?
Well, it's a very interesting question. It is inevitable for advanced students or students that have a higher level to feel bored in class. What I usually do is have them help other people that do not have the same level. But I have to tell you also that not all of those advanced students are willing to help other students that are not so advanced. And even those students that do not have a high level do not, for some reason, they do not feel comfortable being helped by students that have a higher level. Sometimes students that have a higher level tend to monopolize class, but it's not because they want to. Not because they want to. It's because, in my case, I usually tell my students that I don't like to make them do things. I want them to feel that the reason they should do it is because they're learning, and as much as they participate, the benefit will be for them.
That is such an interesting perspective, and I 100% agree. That is a great way to keep the balance in the classroom.
If you could change one thing about the education system regarding the teaching of English, what would it be? I'm interested in your vision from experience, not just as a teacher, but as an observer of the system.
There is actually something that I would like to change, and this may seem, a lot of people might find this a little controversial. And the thing is, as I said earlier, I do not like to make people do things. So in a way, I feel that people should not be made to learn English. There's nothing as discouraging as attending a class where people do not want to learn. The process is a little more complicated. You may have prepared your class with, all kinds of good intentions, expecting your students to participate actively, to answer your questions. But when you find some students that are not like that don't behave like that, or don't answer questions the way you want, it's pretty discouraging. In my opinion, as I said, this is a little controversial. I know English is considered an international language, but in my opinion, English should be taught to people who really want to learn it. That would make the process much, much easier. So again, I know it may sound controversial, but in my opinion, it would definitely make teaching a lot easier.
I see what you mean about motivation making the whole process easier. When students are truly interested, everything flows more naturally. The class feels lighter, and the teacher doesn't have to spend so much energy just trying to get people involved. It really does change the whole atmosphere.
So, we've been talking a lot about how you deal with students, but I would also like to know about yourself. I would like to know, what's your opinion on continuous professional development for an English teacher?
Well, it's a key factor when you decide to become a teacher. A teaching process it's something that changes over time. There are different techniques, different things you can do, different realities, and you might think that it's only about learning how to teach, but it's also learning how to deal with situations in the classroom. You're not usually taught how to deal with those situations. It's more about what you experience in every class. Every class is different. Even if you're teaching the same level, every class is different. Students are different. And, well, I try to read about situations that may take place in the classroom. And when something like that, when similar situations take place when I teach, I try to refer to those things, to that information that I've read, and somehow apply it in my teaching process. Inevitably, as I said when I mentioned technology earlier, technology is moving pretty fast, really fast, and keeping up with that may be a little complicated for some people, especially because of age differences. There are age gaps. For example, I got to tell you, I'm in 40s, and the people I teach are usually in their early 20s, so there's a big gap there. And I like technology, but it's not like I'm always trying to see or find out what's new. And younger people, much younger people, are really interested in that. So trying to keep up with them is a challenge. It has been a challenge, and it's something that I try to read information about, but it doesn't always happen like that.
Well, that was so interesting. Thank you for your participation here today.
Well, I'm glad you invited me to your show, and I hope that, my answers will not affect anyone. It's, again, what I think. I know there are other teachers have different opinions. And okay, again, thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. We'll be talking to you in a different time.
Okay.